now I think we're good to go.
All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. And thanks for coming out to the 2029 Historic Welland Canals Task Force meeting for today. Just going to recognize traditional territories. The task force meets today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish and One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Acknowledging this is a reminder that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples. All right. And any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Williamson. All in favor? All right, carried. All right, and a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. I have a motion for that. Thank you, Councillor Garcia, and all in favor? And carried. Thank you. All right, correspondence. It's a bit of correspondence. So the first item is from Lauren Doig of the Niagara Bruce Trail Club, and she brought to our attention some of the cleanup that was done on Lot 24 of the first Welland Canal in Marin. And it's very fine, small print. And her email tells about some of the cleanup that has taken place. And she does mention at the end that she's looking to the task force to, I'm not sure whether this means to actually take on the responsibility of keeping it neat and tidy or to include it in part of our commemorative events by sprucing it up. So any comments, any input about that from anyone? Okay.
Wanted to make mention that the Bruce Trail Club has added a signage for a little side trail into that little park there, and that they have been doing some Welland Canal related Bruce Trail walking or hiking tours, and attached to her email was a photo of the badge that they're giving out to those of their members who do the hikes along the Welland Canal section of the Bruce Trail, which I think is really great. They took that initiative on their own.
Great. Councillor Williamson?
Just mention it's city-owned land, so that we should maybe send a message to parks folks to maintain it, right? That's all.
Yeah, they are aware of that. Urge the city to clear out that area because it's in a passive park that doesn't get mowed as often as some of the other parks. So the city has been working with the Bruce Trail Club to make sure that area is cleared out. There's a plaque in the park close to there, and making sure that area is cleared out for people to be able to hike along that section of their little side trail there.
Okay. Yeah, it has been looking nicer. I've seen it up there. It's looked rough, and other times of the year it's been tidying up. I see we have a new member on the task force, Olivia Hope. How are you? Is this your first meeting with us?
Hi, yep, this is my first meeting with you guys. I'm Olivia Hope. I'm with the City of St. Catharines. I'm a culture coordinator, so I'm here representing the culture department for the city.
Olivia is the rep for the Arts and Culture
Arts
Committee.
And Culture Advisory.
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the bollards. Okay. It's basically an email, a little bit of an article that I wrote and sent to Amanda Newston, who's the works in the community project and development planning department. And it's about the two third Welland Canal era bollards that are opposite the canal road from the museum, up in the on the top of the buried portion of the third Welland Canal. And there's some photos there, and they're identical to the bollard and plug that's been turned into an interpretive display at JC Gardens. So there are two of them just sitting out there. They've been out there for at least 50 years, and it's apparently quite the site of beer bashes and stuff out there. But Amanda is aware of them. She has been out and looked at them, and they're being considered to be removed and used as interpretive displays, either in probably in the new Fairview Park, which would be a fitting place for them. So it'd be good if we could get those for that. So that's all there is about that. She does know about it. Any comments or questions about that? Those bollards? Colleen's been out there with me too to look at them.
So an idea.
Okay. I lost my agenda page. Got it. All right. The next item is Steve Hartwell, Friends of the Mountain Locks Park. Just to summarize his email, he's kind of listed a bunch of ideas. Some of them that what we covered in our brainstorming about things that we can do. His main concern was something to commemorate the 2024 anniversary in Mountain Locks Park. My view on that personally is the groundbreaking in November of 1824 took place in Thorold, actually, or present day Thorold in Allenburg. I don't really see how anything additional for Mountain Locks Park specific would tie into that. Any other comments or thoughts about Steve's email? We should respond to him in some way.
Looks like Lorraine has her hand up.
I do.
Renee.
Lorraine, sorry.
Oh, thanks, Renee. He has been quite vocal on Facebook, social media, talking about a plan that he'd like to propose. Is that what was in the letter? The plan that he wanted to propose in terms of what kind of celebration we could have at Mountain Locks Park?
Yeah, he's got quite a list of things.
Mm-hmm.
Items.
I think at one time he had actually wanted to come and present, didn't he, Kathleen?
He did, but he was unavailable for our meeting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, any ideas on how to respond? Yes, Councillor Williamson.
Yeah. Was there any historically significant events that took place in Mountain Locks Park in 1824? Was
No.
the deep cut? The deep cut was where the start of the construction was. Was there anything happening at the same time?
No. The ground was broken in Allenburg, and I think the deep cut was the first actual construction, which is south of Allenburg, between Allenburg and Port Robinson.
So historically, there's no real basis to do anything other than what's already been done at Allenburg. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Councillor Garcia.
Councillor Garcia, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Williamson asked the question I wanted to ask, which was, what was the significance of 2024 at Mountain Locks? So, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
was no no significant historical significance in that area of present day Mountain Locks Park to tie into the 2024 anniversary.
I mean, we have to be careful that, we try to celebrate events of significance, not just anything, or it's going to dilute the effort, I think.
Right. I'll draft a response to him.
Can I ask a
Lorraine?
question first? Okay,
Sure.
so he is, and there is a group of people who are very strong advocates of including Mountain Locks Park in a variety of things. In response to him, I totally understand why we would say that nothing significant and happened in 1824, or that the event that he's mentioning actually happened in Alleberg, has been celebrated. But is there anything that we could suggest that might be a possibility for the future for Mountain Locks Park? Because I think that would be the response that would probably be helpful, if possible.
All right, Kathleen?
I just wanted to note that I don't think that we're saying that that event doesn't have merit as far as if the Friends of Mountain Lock Park want to do that event. I think it's whether or not the city is supporting it financially for the 2029 task force anniversary situation. So there's nothing to say that the Friends of Mountain Locks Park can't go ahead and have an event in Mountain Locks Park. But I know they're looking for financial support from the city. And I think that that's where the challenge lies with the tying it to a specific anniversary. But I think that it would be awesome to be able to partner with the Friends of Mountain Locks Park to promote any activities that they want to do in Mountain Locks Park. And I have no doubt at all that there will be events and activities that will happen there throughout the 200th anniversary. It's just that particular event is not one that happened in that location, but that's not to say they can't have an event.
And that's terrific,
sure.
Kathleen. And that's the kind of thing I mean to respond to him, that we could say that they could have it. We don't have the funds to support that. And that, as you had said, that we'd be happy to partner with Mountain Locks Park for some event, perhaps in the 2029 celebration, something that would be positive to send back to say that we understand their concern or their interest, and we would be happy to be partner with them in the future. Not promising anything, but just saying that, explaining why we couldn't do it. And then there's we would be happy to partner with you in something down the road.
For sure. We can definitely promote any activities that the Friends of Mountain Locks Park want to do, because I know they're an active group. So it would be great to be able to promote anything that they're doing either way.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Renee, can you put that in the response?
I will. It just looking at the email though, he does have quite a grocery list but the way I'm reading it, he's looking for the task force to put on these events specifically for Mountain Locks Park. But yeah, I agree. We should.
I'm not surprised by that, but I'm thinking that we can respond in a positive way.
Exactly. And sometimes I have a hard time with that.
I'm happy to help with that response. And Lorraine, if you want,
I would be happy to help with that response.
We can run it together if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's very admirable that they want to really put some things together, and that's the kind of community support that we're going to need if we want to have a really significant events and activities throughout.
Right.
I'd be happy to make a motion if it's needed to move forward with that direction, based on Lorraine's suggestion.
The motion to tailor a response.
Do we need them? Maybe we don't. Maybe it's just a.
Yeah, we probably don't need a motion.
Okay. No, I think we're just responding to his email. So,
let me know how I can help.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Is there any more discussion or any more questions about the Friends of the Mountain Locks Park email? Okay. The other item in correspondence is Arden Fairs, Welland Canal Bicentennial, and the Historical Society of St. Catherine's book launch for Spirit of the Big Ditch. And again, he's asking for the task force, if I'm correct, to kind of sponsor this or to tie in with our events with it using this book launch. It's also to launch the bicentennial. Does that sound right?
Yeah, they're hoping to do the book launch for Monday, December 11th, and they're hoping that it could be hosted at the St. Catharines Museum. They're also looking out for support financially for beverages and snacks, for, I guess, museum staff to clean up, for media promotion in concert with the Historical Society, and having Renee speak at the event. But they really wanted it to be a like a kickoff event like this year for the 2024 celebrations.
I don't think we're ready yet. Did we? We're not ready to, Kathleen?
Yeah, I can just note that I did send Arden an email and noted that when our meeting was, because I'm sure he was probably waiting for a response, and also indicating that the task force doesn't have a budget at the moment, and that, yeah, that we're not ready to go ahead and start launching launching events yet. We don't have a logo or any kind of branding or anything yet.
Or a web page.
Right.
But that's in the wind. Yeah, so we can certainly come out to the event and lend support to it if it's in fact happening.
I think it is. I think we can definitely promote that book and throughout the rest of all the activities that we do, and make sure that that it's clear that that book's available. It's new. It's actually going to be really nice, and it looks great. I saw a little bit of it, and it looks really awesome. And there's going to be a web page, I gather, some sort of web presence that's attached with it, and it sounds awesome. So I think it will be a great resource to promote as well.
Yeah, I'll promote it as well on the Friends of the Welland Canals. All right. Any other comments or questions regarding Arden Fair's email about the book launch of Spirit of the Big Day?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, to Kathleen, has communication staff at City Hall beyond yourself, would they know that this is happening? Maybe we could just make them aware if they're not already. Maybe they can promote it as well.
Technically, I don't know very much about it yet, so I don't have all the information other than what was in that email. If they send us something, though, like something more formal, like some sort of a media kind of information package, we could I could definitely send it on to our communications. I'll send that on to Arden as well and see.
Well, yeah, December 11th doesn't give us very much time to.
No, it's coming soon for sure. But yeah.
Thank you.
Did they mentioned they wanted me to speak on what? On the task force and what the task force is up to, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was very general. It was very general. Okay. I think if you didn't feel comfortable doing that, I'm sure it would be fine as well.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on the task force and what we're doing. Just because we're not ready yet, in my view. So, okay. Any other comments or questions about this issue?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Sure. I was going to suggest that because it is an event and we always participate in many events throughout the city, they could send an invitation to the mayor's office, and the mayor, if he's available, could attend and say a few words, or send one of us. It doesn't have to be on behalf of the task force. It's just council supporting an event in the city.
Well, I'm certainly going to attend, and I don't know about getting up and speaking on the doings of the task force, but it might be a good, let people know about the task force. What do you think, folks? Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there.
Mm-hmm. No, I like Councillor Garcia's idea. I think that's a super idea to invite the mayor or one of the councillors on the committee to, recognize the book and the event.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? We'll move on.
Do you know if the books will be available on the 11th then, Carla?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I'll probably attend then too.
Is it a big coffee table book, like expensive? Like one of the big.
We'll share one.
I thought it was $25 or something for the book.
Oh, that's not bad.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Color
Okay.
illustrations, color cover.
Okay.
It's going to be soft cover, correct, Brian? Do you know? Or is it
Um,
hardcover?
As far as I know, I thought it was going to be a soft cover.
All right. All right. Thanks, folks. Now, item 7, declarations of interest. Okay, hearing none. On to business. 8.1 to the interpretation plan update. Did everyone have a chance to give it a read? Excellent document. I love it. All
I
right.
do have a presentation about it as well that I can go
Okay.
through if you'd like.
Okay.
kind of-
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, just let me pull it up here. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep, I can.
Okay, so this is just going to go through the interpretive plan and kind of just do a quick walkthrough tour of it. So the first phase of the work on this task force, as you know, is to develop an interpretive plan document that will provide guidance to City Council when deciding on approval and resourcing for the 200th anniversary of the first Welland Canal and the recognition and interpretation of historic Welland canals in the city. This document will be part of a report to council that will ask for council endorsement of planning activities and allocate resources through city budget processes for these activities. Why an interpretive plan? Because an interpretive plan is a strategy that focuses on how information can be presented to the public in a cohesive and relevant manner. It provides a blueprint so that the work that comes from the plan stays within scope and vision and doesn't bleed resources into projects that are not directly relevant to the program scope. When a project creeps outside its scope, the messages get diluted and generally fail to provide quality and meaning that was hoped for when the plan was developed. Like any guiding plan, this one is informed by other city plans which connect to the work of this project, which is all of these on this slide, and more probably. Providing these connections ensures that council understands the connections when approving or not resources for a project. There will also likely be other plans that will connect to this project over time, and these can be added as they become relevant. The scope of this interpretive plan is basically two-pronged. One is infrastructure related to the historic Welland canals, including historic remnants throughout the community and ways to highlight, preserve, and tell the stories surrounding these. And that includes trails, trail development, and usage. And then the other prong is the commemorative activities that highlight significant dates related to the 200th anniversary of the first canal. These dates are noted here, which are also specified in our terms of reference for the task force. All the other activities that are noted as part of this plan are related to these two kind of prongs in some way. So that includes things like partnerships, opportunities to showcase, all those things like signage, public art, lookout points, all of those things that we've already talked about. They all fit in within those two prongs, either infrastructure development or interpretation, essentially, and commemorative activities. One thing we noted as we were creating this plan was the lack of clarity and cohesion when it comes to the physical geography that relates to the historic Welland canals. The numerous trails, numerous names of trails, which Renee has brought forward, actually several people have brought forward over the last little while. The numerous names of trails along the route are notable a notable example of this, with at least 4 different names for trails that fall within an area of the historic Welland Canal, of a historic Welland Canal. For this reason, we're suggesting that the first course of action be the renaming and recognition of the geographic areas and trails along the historic Welland Canals, and that they be renamed the Historic Welland Canals Corridor. And subsequent to that, the Historic Welland Canals Corridor Trail, or something to that effect. We can still work on that, but to really create, that whole part of the city that covers the Welland Canals be part of this Historic Welland Canals Corridor. This will better capture the connected nature of trails, landscapes, historic sites, remnants, and parks that fall within this corridor. This will also provide a connected experience for those using these spaces for enjoyment, education, recreation, etc. Some of the things the task force has been asked to do are technically not within the scope of an interpretive plan. These would include things like a future plan for preserving remaining built heritage elements of the historic Welland Canals, and a larger municipal management plan to ensure that the historic Welland Canals corridor is preserved and maintained for the full advantage of future users. That's much bigger than what this task force has been tasked to do. Additionally, the initiatives that are noted here on this slide are not part of what would be considered a traditional interpretive plan, but are connected to the overall recognition and preservation of the historic Welland Canals corridor and are included in the work to implement this interpretive plan. Branding, resourcing, and fundraising, partnership development, advocacy, administration, and project coordination, they just all come along with the whole thing. But they're not very specific to the interpretive part of an interpretive plan. So if we take together all the work that the task force has done to date, including all the information that we've gathered, the visioning sessions and discussions, the interpretive development of this plan is gathered under the heading of 3 thematic pillars, which are basically here. So originally built as a response to local economic and strategic transportation needs in the 19th century, the Welland Canal is globally significant to international transportation and the economy in the 21st century. Regarded as a marvel of engineering and ingenuity, the Welland Canals have shaped the physical and economic development of St. Catharines. And from the earliest settlement, refugees and immigrants have been instrumental in shaping the physical, economic, social, and cultural landscape of St. Catharines. By sharing their diverse skills, languages, traditions, celebrations, and religions, they have enriched the foundations of our community. Throughout the interpretive plan, each interpretive goal and activity will be directly connected back to these 3 themes to ensure that the interpretation remains in its scope and achieves its purpose to provide meaningful interpretive experiences for our audiences. The success of the interpretive plan will be measured by the achievement of the plan's stated goals. Strategies including a phased implementation plan will guide the task force as it facilitates implementation of the plan. These goals focus on the experience of the visitor once the plan is complete. All the implementation ties back to these goals and ensures that the project stays on track and within scope. And these are all based on the visioning discussions that we had as a task force over the last year. So everything that we brought together has been put together in this plan in some way. So whether they're, they may not be as detailed as we might have heard in the visioning session, it will fit somewhere within one of these. If you go to if you start with page 22 in your document, you'll see kind of how the framework lays out on how the ideas that were brought forth in the visioning session actually fit within each one of these interpretive goals. So at the top of each of those pages, starting on page 22, is the interpretive goal. So for example, the first one is establish a rich visitor experience in the historic Welland Canals corridor. And then under that are a whole bunch of different objectives that fulfill those goals. So, for example, motivate exploration and discovery, and then what we could do to encourage that which would be things like encourage people to use trails, identify through mapping and signage where you can go to experience the Welland Canal. So it's really the objectives and the strategies that really take this plan and put tangible objectives and kind of things that we need to do, actions that we need to do to move forward from here. So I'm not going to spend too much time on each of these because they're all in your document, but you can see these are the goals. So the first one was establish a rich visitor experience in the historic Welland Canals corridor. Secondly is establish varied interpretation of both tangible and intangible heritage elements, which we talked about a lot, as you probably recall. This one was a big one, improve physical accessibility and trail connectedness. One of these also includes, looking at where does the trail start, where does it end, how is it signed, that kind of thing. And then on top of that, extend the historic Welland Canals corridor trail to Port Dalhousie. So move it from where it comes out at Arion Road there, the Merritt Trail, up to up Martindale Road and up into towards Lakeside Park, and then also back towards Rennie Park and JC Gardens as well, so that you can kind of connect all of those elements together. 5, establish a commemorative events plan. So take all of the ideas that we've had for events and activities and put together a plan, and then figure out who's going to actually do all of the things that are in that plan. That's kind of a whole separate little mini plan off of our interpretive plan. Promote and communicate interpretive and commemorative activities. So how are we going to get the word out that these are all things that are available? And I think an important part of that is the creation of ways that people can find the trails and the parks and the tangible remnants of the Welland Canals in the community that are easy to find and to navigate. Because geography and physical remnants are such an integral part of the story of the historic Welland Canals, the overall interpretive approach and framework for the historic Welland Canals corridor will be tied directly to the geography and to site-specific elements where the story can be told in the most meaningful and accessible ways. This really provides a truly unique St. Catharines experience and encourages visits across a larger number of spaces, as in you don't hear the same stories in every location, so you need to travel throughout the corridor to get a diversity of experiences. Layering of information also provides for potential of multiple or return visits to a location. I think it's really important as we go forward to really make sure that we focus on the St. Catharines experience, so that if Port Colborne and Thorold are also doing Welland Canal anniversary commemorative activities, to make sure that what we're offering is something that's truly a St. Catharines experience, and we're not trying to be too generic about it. So the interpretive framework refers to the practical application of interpretation across visitor experiences the task force envisions for the corridor, and the realization of interpretive themes as part of the visitor and experience goals. Based on our visioning and discussions, the task force envisions a hybrid of both permanent self-use and personal interpretive opportunities, mixed with things like public art, commemorative events and activities, and with improved access to the tangible resources for an exciting recreational experience overall throughout the historic Welland Canals corridor. The task force and interpretive planners will assign interpretive themes and messages, elements, materials, and infrastructure to specific locations in the implementation phase through an interpretive matrix and an implementation plan. So, when we talked about where signage might go along a trail, what trails need to be maintained, where should we take a trail, that's all part of how do we implement this in the end. In the implementation plan, we'll be able to fit these plans and ideas within the implementation framework and ensure that we're providing a well-rounded experience that encompasses a wide range of elements. Just like when we had that visioning and we talked about all these different kinds of elements you could have, well, you want to make sure that you kind of pepper those out throughout the entire community to ensure that it's well-rounded rather than everything being stuck in one little spot and you miss out on a whole lot of things that you could be seeing. Because of the time period being considered in this plan, the implementation will be carried out through a phased approach over a number of years, and as funds and resources are allocated to the projects. So some parts of this project will be much easier and shorter in their implementation and may not require a lot of financial or human resources, whereas other parts of this implementation will take years and a significant commitment of financial and human resources. Trail development is a great example of that. It's going to take a number of years and probably relatively significant resourcing to be able to really do more with the trails that we currently have. All will need to be considered by City Council and resources allocated to their implementation depending on the will of Council. Most of these projects are not already part of a departmental budget allocation and will require additional funds to implement. Most specifically, events and interpretive elements such as signage, trail development, public art. None of those currently have budget attached to them in a departmental, currently a departmental budget. And that's pretty much the grand tour of the interpretive plan as it stands. And so I'm happy to take any questions. I think Councilor Garcia, you had your hand up.
Councilor Garcia, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of comments. I did spend a lot of time looking through this, and I want to thank Kathleen and her team for excellent work. It's very detailed and inclusive work, and the one of the key points that comes out of it immediately to me is that it is going to be quite costly to do a lot of the things that we're talking about here. So there's no way in my mind that we're going to be able to fund all that internally. So I think we need to really emphasize searching for grants that may be applicable. And I would imagine that this is a project that could be quite potentially attractive for grants at the federal level in terms of the Department of Heritage and Culture or whatever they call it these days. But certainly a lot of work. You included a lot there. I have a number of comments and questions. First of all, the comments about the extending the trailhead to Porta Lucio course I totally support, and it's something that the chair has brought up before. The key question is, Kathleen, you mentioned the different trails that we have and the different names, and you talk about the historic Welland Canals corridor, but that would be like, I thought Welland Canals trails, for example, was long enough. So historic Welland Canals corridor may be even more cumbersome. But their names, I think we need a name that really is identifiable by visitors as well as locals. And certainly in my mind, Welland Canals would have more significance to a visitor, not all of them, but certainly much more than Merritt, because most of these people would not even know who William Hamilton Merritt was, like we do. So I don't pretend to have the right answer, but I think it would be very important to have kind of a universal name that can somehow be adapted to different trails as appropriate. And I don't know whether numbers are good enough, or whether letters are good enough, or whether dates or something, so that if we had, for example, Welland Canals Trail, number one, number two, number three, something like that. That's not necessarily good, but I think we need to be consistent, but be able to identify the different ones. Um, I think a point that we don't highlight high enough that comes out, and pardon the pun about high, is the fact that this canal has the highest lift of any canal in the world. And I have been lucky enough to traverse the Panama Canal a few times, and I've been through the Suez Canal, and the Suez Canal is totally the opposite. It's a trench in the sand. The Mediterranean and the Red Sea are at the same level, so it's essentially digging straight across. So it is quite an accomplishment, and I think it's something that we don't highlight enough, which makes us unique. Um, and my next comment on a couple of more comments, you emphasize the immigrant component, and I would say in today's political correctness climate, we want to make sure that we're very careful with that it doesn't look, for example, like if we are focusing exclusively on the Irish and Scottish immigrants and Masons, and that we come across as being inclusive because we have so many different immigrants today. I also wonder whether the task force should approach, pardon me, the other municipalities along the canal, since the opening of the Welland Canal is significant to them as well. And is there something that we could do that would transcend St. Catharines and involve Thorold and Port Colborne? Something to think about. Again, a big challenge, but I have always dreamt that we could have a Welland Canals trail and tour where you could start in Port de Lucie and over several days end up in Port Colborne and have the right stops and interpretation along the way, or you could come the other way. Let's see. Two more thoughts. When do you anticipate this could go to council, Kathleen, if we approve the draft today?
So if we approve the draft, then I will write up a council report and I will send it through the regular process, which I think takes, I want to say 4 to 6 weeks or so to get through all of the different people who have to read it and things like that. I think that's roughly how long it will take. So I'm expecting then it probably will be early in the new year, maybe January.
Okay. The reason I asked is because I did follow up with the CAO, as the chair knows, about making sure that we get approval of changing trail names, or at least changing the signs we want to change and so on. And his advice was that if we whatever we get approved in the minutes here of the meeting would go to council as part of the minutes of the Welland Canals Task Force, and then it can be approved as direction from council at that time. So anyway, I will leave it at that, and I'm happy to provide further input as required. So I'll leave it up to my colleague, Councilor Williamson.
Thanks, Councilor Garcia. And Councilor Williamson, your hands up.
Thanks for putting the pressure on, Carlos. Yeah, first of all, this really is a phenomenal piece of work. It's thoughtful, comprehensive, it's education in and of itself. And I take it that this was done on staff time. There was no extra budget for this. Questions for you, Mr. Chair, to Kathleen.
Yes, that's correct.
That's amazing, because oftentimes something of this quality is, sometimes require external consultants to do it. So this is yeah, really terrific. For me, I think the overall, my overall priority is the physical infrastructure to improve accessibility and have the wayfinding signage in place. I agree that we want to keep it simple in terms of the naming. Old Welland Canals, or we'll have to, maybe we need some help in terms of people who know that kind of, those kinds of communications. And then I guess we have to also kind of target whether we're gearing this towards straight up walking trail or also including cycling. I guess there's some stretches of it where cycling may be appropriate, other points where we would see it as a conflict between those two modalities. And I may have missed this, but also there's these trails also do intersect at points with current Welland Canal Parkway. So we have to make those connections and as well as with the Niagara Great Circle route. So make sure that I'm sure you've considered that. Overall, there's, John Jackson would talk about the three main communities that are within our municipal boundaries that grew up as canal side communities, for lack of a better word. And those focal points would be Port Dalhousie and Meryton. I also think we the canal gets buried, at least the first and second canal gets buried once you hit the end of Pierpoint Park, and you've got the 406 and all that section behind St. Paul Street. But this is downtown St. Catharines grew up, and old St. Catharines grew up primarily because of its access and the fact that St. Paul Street backed onto the canal, and there's lots of mills and industry and all kinds of important points that need to be recognized in the downtown core. So maybe we can get the Downtown Association involved a little bit. To my recollection, I could be Colleen or Kathleen or Rennie could. There's the anchor at the little parkette at the corner of Ontario and St. Paul. I don't know if we have much else in terms of information telling people that the canal went right through the heart of our city. So anyway, I won't get into a lot of detail, but I think that's something that we can't overlook. Naturally, we got to include everything, but there's to me there's three focal points: Port Dalhousie, downtown, and Meryton. Just one note there, in the proposed budget and past budgets as well, I've noticed there is a line item for the city to maintain the old lock walls. Primarily, I guess we're talking about the second canal from downtown through Meryton. Not sure. I think it's just been as walls have caved in or issues have happened that they've gotten involved, but we do need to put some emphasis on trying to preserve them to at least a certain extent, because as Carlos mentioned, we get into a lot of expenditures, and that's not directly connected to this task force. I think that's pretty much it for me. I was interested in Slabtown, Oak Street. That's where my great-great-grandparents actually built a house on Oak Street, so which later got blown down by the cyclone of 1898. But so I hadn't realized Slabtown generally Meryton, but I didn't know it was specifically at Oak and Elm Streets. So yeah, thank you for this, and we got some work to do, and this outlines I think we're going to have to prioritize and sequence this, and I think that's going to be a big part of our role as a task force. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment, Councillor Williamson, based on what you said. I don't know how clear it comes through in the plan, but I think the idea would be that, well, lots of times we think that you would start in Port Dalhousie because Lock 1 is there and work your way towards Meryton, but I think we are really trying to encourage people to go in both directions, start in Meryton, go the other way as well, or do the entire region, which would be great. I agree with you on that one, Councillor Garcia, but if you're just sticking in St. Catharines, you could start in either direction, so have kind of like a trailhead kind of situation at both ends. At least that's what we're proposing.
All right, thank you. And Lorraine, you had your hand up there.
I think the councillors have covered most of the points that I had, but I did want to agree, first of all, with both councillors that the interpretive plan is very, very well done. I found it exciting to read and think about the prospect. And basically, I wanted to know, well, like, where do we go from here? Kathleen, you mentioned 4 to 6 weeks to take it possibly to city council. Can we speak about this, or is the information considered confidential or embargoed, or what? First of all, I'm the rep on the Heritage Advisory Council or Committee to talk about this. And so I'm wondering if, can that be brought to the Heritage Advisory Committee? Can I write about it in the Meriton Matters, those types of things? What's the status?
Kathleen, did you want to speak to that?
I don't see why the task force couldn't have a rep speak at city council when it comes to council. I would think that that would be appropriate. So that's easy enough to facilitate. Also, I don't, as as far as writing about it in Meriton Matters, I think I would recommend you wait until it gets published to council first, but then after that, I don't see any reason why you couldn't highlighted in Meriton Matters. I don't know what the council members feel about that, but I would say just have the rest of council see it first before we do that.
Certainly. And Councillor Williamson, I didn't realize that. That sounds like a great article for the Meriton Matters about your grandparents. I'll sign you up. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is, I had mentioned this earlier when we started talking as a task force, that I'm in contact with the communications rep at the St. Lawrence Seaway for articles that I use. He gives me information. And I had mentioned that we had this task force, and at some point down the road, they had wanted to be informed about the plan or, what was happening. So I can certainly forward you the communication lead's name, Kathleen, if that would be something that you would be able to do.
That would be great. Thanks.
Thanks.
Councillor Garcia, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Just one thing that I forgot to mention, when I saw the write-up and talked about Port Lucie and the first lock of the first canal, my understanding up to now is that it was called the harbor lock, and is it not better to identify it in the write-up as a harbor lock rather than lock one, since we have other lock ones anyway?
I think it's important that it be distinctly known as Lock 1 of the first Welland Canal. Because by calling, yes, it was a harbor lock, that's more about its location. It'd be the same as like Neptune staircase, the escarpment portion of the locks. It's a kind of a subcategory, but it was a numbered lock, even though it was colloquially known as the harbor lock. It was a numbered lock, Lock 1 of the first canal. I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would imagine the write-up could say Lock 1 of the first canal, parenthesis, the harbor lock, or something like that, just to make sure that it's mentioned. And I just wanted to emphasize again what I said before and what Bruce said, that this is an excellent piece of work, and we want to thank Kathleen and her staff. And I know most of you are probably not familiar with all of the work that Kathleen does, but I'm familiar with a lot of it. And just this past week, I attended the induction ceremony for the St. Catharines Sports Hall of Fame, and she gets so many kudos there. She has to hide because she does so much work putting that together. So we're very lucky to have her and her staff.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a fabulous document, I think. It's very, it's got everything included what we hope to achieve.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I forgot to ask you, are you please satisfied if the draft gets approved for it to be in a report to council as far as the way it deals with the trails, or?
Yeah, I think it's great as it is. As far as the trails go, personally, I think the Welland Canals corridor is a perfect name for because it encompasses all the side trails, the Merritt Trail, the Quote, the Walmart Creek Trail. It covers J.C. Gardens. It even covers, we can include Fairview Park. And additionally, the buried portion of the third Welland Canal through the former Grantham Township, what is now St. Catharines, obviously, like the wartime subdivisions. You got Doncaster Boulevard, Plymouth Street, um, Franklin Street, were all built right over top the third Welland Canal line. So even little things like having commemorative street signs on those streets, former line of the third Welland Canal, all these things can be incorporated into the corridor. The thing with naming it, in my view, the Welland Canal Trail, that would confuse me because we have a Welland Canals Trail. It goes along the Fourth Canal from Port Colborne to Port Weller. Isn't it called the Welland Canal Trail, the Parkway Trail? So I think this is more of it's a historic, it speaks to the historic components of the Welland Canal, the old canals. That's just my personal view. Other than that, what does the group think? What does the task force think about this interpretive plan? Is it ready to go to council as is? Pauline? You're muted.
Sorry. It's a terrific document. I think it is ready. If I can just say one comment about the whole project is sort of further to what Bruce was mentioning about the three communities and the importance as well. We touched a bit about the Mountain Locks community group. And when Bruce mentioned about the downtown area, it is absolutely significant. And we have a group there that we could team with as well. And that's the Chacluna Shipyard project. So that drew a lot of interest with the community. And I think we could tap into that group too. In terms of Port Dalhousie, I don't know if there is a significant or a similar group in Port Dalhousie as there is in Mountain Locks Park, but there certainly is a good community of canal interested people down there. So I think it's really important as we go through the plan, is to keep in mind these other communities that we can tap into. That's it. But yes, as far as moving the plan forward, I think it's excellent job.
Just a comment about the Mountain Locks Park. That's a Facebook group. I don't think that's a community group in itself. It's a Facebook page.
All the same.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments about the interpretive plan? Do we need to make a motion to have this go to council? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to present at the earliest convenience to council this historic Welland Canals Corridor interpretive plan?
I guess it should be somebody other than the councilors, perhaps.
Lorraine? All right, you're muted there.
I will.
Okay. All right,
I will
Lorraine,
move
thank
that.
you. And all in favor? Against? Abstentions? Okay, carried.
Do we need to see Brian for quorum or do we have quorum already with? I'm just wondering because we didn't see his hand. Does that matter? Kathleen?
What say you, Brian?
Let's see, what
Sorry,
does Brian say?
I was distracted. Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay,
Just checking. Thanks.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm listening to this meeting on my work laptop, and the camera is like garbage on it, which is why you're not seeing me.
Thanks, Brian.
We miss your cat, Brian.
All right. Thanks very much, Kathleen, for your presentation. And again, to Carla and Adrian and Kathleen for your fantastic work on this document. It's brilliant. All right. The next item up for business here is the task force webpage for public consultation. And Kathleen, before the meeting, you kind of outlined a little bit of what that might entail. Could you share with us again about a potential webpage?
All right. So if you have, if anyone followed the link that went to the Fairview Park consultations that Amanda had presented to us about, it would be something similar to that, where there would be some information about the interpretive plan and a way for people to make comment, kind of similar to basically any of the public consultations that happen. I don't think we want a survey, but I think that having the ability for people to be able to send a note or a comment to that is available on that page. And then there would also be a link to the plan and a link to the task force terms of reference. And once the council report is public, it could be linked to that as well.
Thank you. Is there a timeline for this? Is this something that's just in the works that's going to happen, or do we have to vote on it? Or
I don't think we have to vote on it, but I think the timeline would be after the plan is presented to council before it goes to the public consultation.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Any comments or questions about the web page, potential web page? All right. Thanks very much. The next item is...
Sorry, Mr. Chair, through you to
Yeah.
Kathleen. What were you thinking of coming up with a set of questions that you will review with us at the next meeting, let's say, or?
Yeah, we could do that. I think that's probably a good way to go.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Next item is walking tours. We started them last year. I think we did two, didn't we? Two. It was my hope that everybody on the task force, since we are commemorating the old Welland canals, I think it's important that everybody on the task force get out their boots on the ground and see what we're actually hoping to commemorate and focus on. It's also an outdoor brainstorm session. You know, we can get ideas. We can look at where that's a good place for a sign. That's a good place for this, you know. I think we were going to do Mountain Locks Park as our next walk. Colleen, do you have any input on where we would probably be best served to hike on our next one?
We did Portaluzzi and JC Park. Are those the two that you're talking about? Okay. Yeah. They were done on the same day, but you're combining those as, or those are two separate.
Yeah, we did them.
Okay.
Did we just do the one hike, or did we go out for a second one? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I think it was the only one that I knew of. I think yeah, either Mountains View Park or the Meriton Trails.
Right. The weather, this is an ideal time for Mount Locks Park because once the snow gets in, you don't see much. But as Colleen pointed out to me, a little bit of snow is the best because it accentuates and highlights the geography and the different elevations. So I would suggest that our next hike be of Mountain Locks Park. So we want to pick a date for that. What obviously it would need to be on a weekend, I would think, Saturday or Sunday. What works for people?
Sunday is good for me.
Yeah, me too.
Are we talking about like before the end of the year, or are we talking about early in the new year?
I would say the best hiking, if you don't mind, the best hiking right now is anytime now until March, really. So it can extend over several months.
Yeah. Did we want to do this before the year's end? What do people think?
Do people have time?
Do people have time? And Christmas is coming up and all that nonsense. So people are going to be.
Maybe we can look into January.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going seeing the bollards by the museum, but that can be just a one-off.
I can take you out there,
A couple of
Bruce.
us could go. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll grab a coffee and go have a look. All right. So, well, we're probably going to have a meeting before we're going to have a meeting in December. So maybe we can push that over to December to pick out a definitive, proper date to do a tour of Mountain Locks. And then throughout the winter, because, you know, we can do Mountain Locks and then from Sobeys, Lock 14 and head north. And then we can finish our tours downtown. Head that way. All right. So everyone's good with that. We'll carry it over to our next meeting to pick a date to hike.
Maybe people can think about January 7th.
January 7th.
If that date works, we can always discuss it further, but maybe think about that date.
Yeah, that's a good idea because it's after all the busyness.
And I'm having a knee replacement on the 9th, so that's probably
Oh yeah, well,
a good idea.
now another, I'm not sure how mobile she is, but Mount Locks Park is very much the purview of Isabel Bachman, and many of you know her. Might we invite her along? I know she has some mobility issues right now, but she is a great resource for that specific locale as far as the old Welland canals. So maybe it might be an idea to extend an invitation to her to join us.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Shall I send her that invitation? Or are you going to?
Yeah. Yeah, you can if you like, Lorraine. You're
I talk to her
probably
regularly, so.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So tentatively January 7th. So
Morning or afternoon?
well,
Typically.
not too early. I
10?
don't know.
11?
11? Okay.
11.
Tentatively, I'll say that.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding anything that we talked about tonight before we pick a date for our next meeting? The issue I have now, I started a new job, and Tuesdays is my shifts lately. I work till 6 o'clock, so I'm assuming we're going to have another Zoom meeting in December. So if folks are able to meet again at 7, that would work for me. But I certainly, you know, other people's concerns are. I'm certainly not the priority as far as.
Maybe another day of the week would work best for the group.
Any ideas? Any thoughts about that? A Wednesday?
Wednesdays are better for me, but
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Renee, are you working until 6 every day of the week?
I'm sorry?
Are you working until 6 normally?
Normally, lately I've been working at 6, but I can speak to my boss too. And, you know. So why don't we schedule the next meeting for Wednesday? What days?
What about December 13th?
Wednesday, the 13th of December? That works for me. At 7 p.m.?
sure, it's getting to be the busy time of the year. I see I have an event at the PAC that I have to attend because I'm on the board at 5:30 and it will go until quite late. So that week,
Maybe Carla can send out
sorry,
a
no,
poll.
that's not on my apologies. That's on the Thursday. So no, Wednesday I'm okay. Yeah.
That's a good idea, what Kathleen said, that Carly can send out a poll and see what works for everybody.
Okay.
All right. So a motion to adjourn the meeting. Colleen, thank you. All for. All right. Thanks very much, folks, for coming out.
Thanks, everyone.